have Dr. Feyi. I think let me just go with Dr. Feyi Akinwolemiwa-Alao profile. Dr. Feyi is an architect with practice experience in interior architecture and landscape design. She is currently a researcher affiliated with the Welsh School of Architecture, that's in Cardiff, and user experience researcher, that is the UX researcher at Next Ltd UK. She has designed, coordinated, and implemented some evaluations of affordable vertical farms prototypes in low-income communities using vertical greening systems as a means for thermal comfort, passive cooling, and self-sufficient farming. And I think self-sufficient farming are of interest to her research work. Dr. Feyi, please, can you just let us hear your voice?
Hi, everyone. Nice to be here.
It's good to have you, Dr. Feyi.
Dr. Tobi is an assistant professor in the School of Geography at the University College Dublin in Ireland. Dr. Tobi has a background in metrology. He's finished from the Federal University of Technology, Akure, and he had his PhD in Hong Kong, I think the Polytechnic University, Hong Kong, and was also a postdoctoral scholar there before moving to Ireland. So, Dr. Tobi, you're welcome.
Thank you very much, sir. Thanks for inviting me, and I'm happy to be here.
Okay, so without wasting much time, I think we'll be handing the first baton to Dr. Feyi. Please, are you set?
Yeah, I'm here. Hello.
Okay.
Yeah.
So within the next few minutes, we'd like to draw from your wealth of knowledge and experience. You can go ahead now.
Okay. Dr. Muyiwa, could you please share the slide?
Okay, I'll do that just now. Okay.
Can you see the presentation button?
Yes.
Yes.
Yeah,
great. All right then. Thank you very much. Hi everyone. If you can hear me, could you just say hi back?
Hi.
Can you all hear me?
Hi.
Hi. Hello. Right. I was really impressed to hear about what Futa was doing. Could everyone please mute their microphone? We have some noise coming from the background. Everyone should please be on mute. Is that okay? Yeah. All right then. I was very impressed to hear about what Futa was doing pertaining to sustainability. It's clear that it's about time. And so when Dr. Muyiwa reached out to me about this competition, I was really, really excited. So I just thought, you know, a really short presentation on how, my expertise, which is talking about barriers to widespread implementation in Nigeria. So I just prepared a short presentation, and I hope you can benefit from it. Dr. Muyiwa, could you please share the next slide, please?
Yeah.
Right. There have been studies on vertical greening system that has proven how they are important to combat issues about climate change and greenhouse emissions. And then everyone, there have been studies that have proven how they can absorb noise, they can absorb air pollution, they can reduce ambient temperature, they can influence mental health and all that. So, the studies have been proven over and over again as far back as 200 BC. That's during the Hanging Gardens of Babylon, when it was first designed by Nebuchadnezzar for his wife. So it's not really, and over centuries, they've tested it and they've realized that actually this is a really important tool to combat issues of climate change and all that. So these are some of the benefits that have been listed over time. To the next slide, please. Right. So the benefits of this system have been so publicized that we have countries such as Vietnam, Japan, countries in Europe that have developed policies relating to greening and vertical greening systems. And one of such protocols that comes to mind is the Kyoto Protocol, which was developed in 1992, where countries made a pact to ensure that they were going to combat issues pertaining to greenhouse emissions. And one of such ways was to ensure that the plants, they encourage plantings and, encourage urban greening, especially in cities. So it's become a really important part of policies in today's day and age. So the next slide is, yes, so the question is, why hasn't vertical greening system been widely implemented in Nigeria as at 2020? We can't say there hasn't been policies developed. For instance, LASPAC is known for, they've been known for their initiative encouraging tree planting and greening and parks and all that. So you can say, okay, that's a very wonderful effort by the government. But now, you can't deny that there's still limited implementation, particularly among low-income communities on even general residential areas, which is where such benefits can be felt the most. So we're asking why, why hasn't that been implemented? And as you are future architects, this is an opportunity. This is a really, really good opportunity to learn about this. And maybe in future, whenever you start having clients, you can always talk to them about, yeah, let's include a little bit of greenery in your houses. So it starts from now. It starts from, studying about it, running competitions, encouraging it in practice. If you don't put it in, if you don't talk to your clients about it in future, then we'll probably be talking about this in the next few years. So some of the few barriers are on the next slide. Could you please change it, please? Yeah, there are primarily two factors: social factors and financial factors. Social factors include, well, I don't want mosquitoes in my house. I don't want animals to come near my house. I don't want bees near me, or what is flower? Why would I have flower around me? Lack of awareness on what it can do to you. And the second aspect is financial. Some of these systems are very expensive, particularly the living walls. You require 24 hours electricity. You require soil, you require hydroponics, which are very expensive, and some of these systems are a bit complicated. So those are the two factors: cultural, societal factors, and financial factors. Could you go to the next slide, please? Now, some of the solutions, which is example is this competition that is being run, is adapting it to suit our environmental and cultural context. It's very easy to say, okay, let's import some of these systems and set them up. But if you don't have people that appreciate it, if you don't have the means to maintain these systems, then it won't be successful. So, an example of in this competition is the use of sustainable materials to develop something new, to develop something different, something that, the materials are readily available and they can be easily transformed. So this is a wonderful example. And then, extremely simple to assemble prototypes, prototypes that are aesthetically appealing. And then talk about the benefits as well, talk about how provide possible savings in feeding. And also, you can plant, sorry about the background. You can have accessibility to plants that are wonderful for the health, such as agbo leaves and all that. Also, for architects, you should be able to introduce it to your clients as early as possible and talk to them about it, that this is a wonderful thing to have. And then also organize community meetings and talks in low-income communities and talk to them about it and how important it is to have within their buildings. So these are just some of the possible solutions. And then one of such solutions that we're talking about now is number one, which is to develop extremely simple to assemble prototypes, and then as architects, introducing it to your clients.
There are 31 participants in our Zoom event.
So yeah, so that's the presentation.
Thank you very much, Dr. Feyi. Can Dr. Tobi try sharing his screen? I just changed it. Thanks for that talk about VGS, the brief overview, and sharing from your experience, your research, and what you did in Lagos. Dr. Tobi, okay. Yeah.
Yes, please, can you find my screen now?
Yes, I have your screen, and I think others should be seeing it.
Okay, so everyone can see it, right?
Yes.
Okay.
Can you please mute your mic? Please, everyone, mute your mic. Okay, Dr. Tobi, you can go ahead.
All right. Thank you, everyone, for coming for this meeting. And I also want to thank the organizers as well for deeming it fit to invite me to give this short talk. Also, I would like to appreciate Dr. Feyi for the inspiring talk she just gave. Actually, it's like a background to what I'm going to describe. I mean, she mentioned some of the benefits for the ecosystem services of vertical greening systems, one of which is what I will talk about today. For me, I'm not an architect and I'm not a practitioner in any way. I'm just a scientist interested in urban green infrastructures and how they help us to adapt to climate change and all of that. So today I'm just going to share with you what I titled Simulation Study of Vertical Greening Systems for urban climate adaptation in Hong Kong. So I had my PhD and postdoc in at the City University of Hong Kong and Chinese University of Hong Kong, respectively. So I did some studies about the impact of vertical greening and, in fact, green infrastructure generally, including trees and green roofs, on climate mitigation, passive energy saving, and air quality improvement. So recently, Hong Kong has been investing in vertical greening system, and in fact, you have a lot of them around the urban landscape in Hong Kong in recent years. A lot of investments are going into it, but the question one would like to know is, to ask is, why is Hong Kong investing so much in vertical greening systems? So I have a few answers here. Of course, the obvious one is the provision of ecosystem services, like Dr. Feyi mentioned, temperature regulation, passive energy saving, carbon management, air purification, and all of that. But why is this more particular for Hong Kong? This is because Hong Kong is high density city. So in Hong Kong, you have lots of vertical, a lot of high-rise structure, what we call skyscrapers. And in fact, the average building height in Hong Kong is about 60 meters. So what this implies is that vertical surfaces offers up to 5 times larger surface area than the grand surface of Hong Kong combined. And also because of the density of the city, there's limited land space for tree planting. So they always they are always finding alternative to inculcate greening into the urban environment. And of course, like you see in the slide here, because of the paved structure, concrete in Hong Kong, the environment is very unconducive for tree growth. So all of this has led to the increase in investment in green and in vertical greening in Hong Kong. Now, I just want to showcase the the temperature regulation benefits of Hong Kong, of vertical greening system by asking this small question. And this question emanated from a top level meeting about green infrastructure development in Hong Kong, which my supervisor then attended. He was trying to convince the government in Hong Kong to invest more in vertical greening systems. And one of the questions that was asked was, how much of green water is required for optimum cooling, say 1 degree reduction in temperature at neighborhood scale? So this one of my research question while during my research, and I would like to just show you what we did to answer that question and what our answer to this question was. So to answer this question, we look at the morphology of Hong Kong in fact, in one of the densest neighborhoods in Hong Kong, which we call Mokok. And this is the morphology here. And then we look at we develop a model to parameterize this neighborhood. And then we use what we call the environment model, actually, which has the capability to simulate the plant surface and air interaction. So then we had to fix green walls on some of these buildings, looking at some case studies, doing some parametric experiments. And in the red dots here, I mean, this part of the neighborhood, we fix some receptor. That's where we take our measurement of temperature. So in the end, what we with, we add some case studies, some scenario. One is we look at the building structures in Hong Kong. Generically, we have without podium. That's the ancient way of developing their buildings. And this is what we have in Nigeria most of the time as well. You just have buildings without podium. And then we look at the impact of urban density. That's where we consider high, medium, and low density. And then we had to fix some green walls on the building surfaces. And we did some parametric experiments. One is to check if we have 100% of the facade green, if we have only the east-west direction green, and if we have one of the side like east only, west only, and north and south dimension, orientation rather. Then another important point is that we also considered so recently they had to come up with strategies to improve the urban climate in Hong Kong. And one of the strategies is to start applying podium. So we have podium before you place your tower on the, then you place your tower on the building, right, on the podium. So with this kind of design, we were able to also come up with some case studies. So for example, in this case study, you look at attaching green wall to 20-meter height of the east-west podium only, or 20 meters tall green wall on the podium only, and also on the tower in certain directions. So we did all those calculations, and then we import it into environment model, do the calculation, and then we came up with this results. So one of the things you see here is the temperature reduction, and on the y-axis, and then the green facade ratio. That's the percentage of the facade that was greened. So one of the lessons we learn here is that during the daytime, if you have low density neighborhood, green infrastructure is, vertical green infrastructure is not that effective in neighborhood cooling. Okay, because here the maximum you could get, even with 100% greening, is less than 0.3 reduction. 0.3 degrees reduction in temperature. And but with high density neighborhood, you can achieve 1 degree, which was our target, when you have around 30 to 40 percentage of your facade green. So the same case thing happened during the nighttime as well. So it is clear from this that the urban cooling potential of green walls or vertical greening is more obvious in high density environment because it offers more vertical or surface area for the planting. Okay, so back to our question. The initial question was how much of green wall is required for optimum cooling? That is 1 degree temperature reduction target. And the answer we got was 30 to 50% of the facade must be green. That's the green facade ratio. And then we had to look at which of these case studies actually offers the best option. So we proposed this mainly because here you have 10 medium of the facade should be greened, and 40 meters of the tower should be east west direction. The advantage of that over others is because this order to suggest that we should install the green facade in all directions, in all orientations rather. So, but this gives you, with just east and west, you can achieve the same target. So, which means one can use the north-south direction or orientation for other purposes. So this is exactly what I have to talk about today. And if you'd like to know more, there's a published paper on that in Urban Forestry and Greening. And you can find details on how we configure the model and all of that in the paper. Thank you very much.
Interesting. Thank you very much, Dr. Tobi. It's good to see this practical work and to build on what Dr. Feyi has spoken about in terms of ecosystem services, and to see this in real life. We have a lot to learn from this in Nigeria and beyond. It's time for questions and comments. I'm not sure if anyone has one or two things to say. I think the general rule is that you signify. There is a means for you to signify on the Zoom. Once you signify, I would recognize you and ask you to unmute, and then you would say what you have to say. So please signify. If you don't want to signify, you don't want to speak, you can just write your question as a message to everyone. I would read it out and would have either of the speakers to respond. So, anyone with a comment or question? Okay, Tosin, I can see Tosin. Okay, let's have Tosin first. Please unmute and ask your question.
Okay, so thank you very much for this brief. I wish it was a bit lengthy, but you have to manage time anyway. Powerful, I must confess. And well, I found out that okay, we actually did relate, especially the second speaker. He did relate the Hong Kong context to Nigeria context, and I think the best case study is Lagos. But just like in the webinar session we had with Dr. Adegun, in a country whereby the maintenance culture is very poor, nothing to write home about. Just we know that yes, we will have to work on it. But your own views, Saz and Ma, what are your views as regards how young architects, designers can incorporate a system such that it automatically places a check on maintenance of buildings? Because I really see this building standing outside Nigeria due to the fact that, okay, maintenance culture is in place. I don't know if my question is clear and direct, sir.
Dr. Tobi, Dr. Feyi, do you want to go? Wants to go first?
I believe the question was directed to Dr. Tobi.
Yeah, for me, I think this question is best answered by a practitioner. But let me just say that maintenance is still one of the challenges of vertical greening systems installation, across the world. So because, it's on the high-rise building, for example. So you have to find a way of passing water, irrigating the system, maintaining the substrate, and all of that. So it's still a big challenge across the world. So for me, I think for student architects, one of the advice I would give to them is to, I don't know how it works, but maybe to emphasize this and to emphasize this maintenance part in their design, and encourage their clients even to maintain the vertical greening system. So I don't know if other speakers have better idea about this.
Hi everyone. That's one of the first steps is to talk about this, which is what we are doing now. So the advice now is sorry about this noise. The advice now is based on what we're doing now, running competitions, encouraging people to think out of the box and all that. So we can always start with that one. And then we develop prototypes that suit our context, that suit our So one of such examples is to make sure we develop prototypes that don't need electricity. We develop prototypes that are not difficult to assemble. And we also develop prototypes that don't require too much complexities in the construction. So that's what we're saying, developing indigenous solutions that suit our environment.
Okay, thank you. I think it's very interesting to see that maintenance is a challenge across the world. Maybe here in Nigeria it would be on a double level, but we have to develop low maintenance systems. Develop systems that require little maintenance that would cost lower amounts so that it doesn't become a burden. From what we know about greening generally, even at the residential level, the ones that are in vertical, people having lawns and grasses, shrubs, they tend to cut them off because they feel it's high maintenance. I've found that from some of my research, but we just have to develop systems that wouldn't cost much money. I've got 2 questions here. Okay, I want to read out 2 of the questions written. Thank you for the wonderful presentation. That's from Olufemi. Any thought about LCA and the cases? LCA is the life cycle analysis. And then greenhousing, how does it have to be having greens in the house? That's those are the 2 questions from Olufemi. Dr. Feyi, Dr. Tobi, do you want to respond?
Trying to be clear. So you mean you said your question is about life cycle analysis of vertical greening systems, or could you just make it clearer, because I'm not really
I
sure
think it was written. The question was written, and it's about life cycle analysis on vertical greening systems as part of the building itself.
Yeah, life cycle analysis. There's a lot of literature pertaining to it, and one of the things that keep coming up is, these things have a limit to how long they last. So part of the solution is, let's develop prototypes that are made from recyclable materials that don't affect the environment. So that's always what is included as part of life cycle analysis. Like, okay, what kind of materials can we use? How much electricity, how much energy should it or should it not generate? And how replaceable are they? So those are always one of the top 3 factors pertaining to life cycle analysis. And one of such ways is, as I mentioned, is the use of sustainable materials, and materials that are easy to come by, and materials that are easy to replace. So that's always a recommendation when designing prototype. I hope that answers your question.
Okay, Dr. Tobi, do you want to say anything about that?
No, I think she touched on the important part.
Okay, I've got another question here from Jude Bayode. I guess if people could routinely maintain their backyard garden because it's quite accessible, then if the greening system is accessible by design and voluntarily customizable as possible based on what the owners can afford or keep, then it should be easy to maintain. Okay, this is more of a comment. This is this probably isn't any existing system that is 100% free of maintenance, not even natural ecosystem. I think that the word here is that getting systems that are easy to maintain, since maintenance is part of life, we would say. I'm not sure if there's any other comment or any other question. Tosin, I see your hand up. Do you still want to say something? Okay, I've got another question. Thank you for the presentation. This is from Oluwole Odekunle. How will the issue of reptiles and insects be addressed with the VGS? Okay.
Okay, let me say something about that. So the first thing that comes to my mind is the choice of plant species. So one of the important points to note when developing greening system or vertical greening system is the choice of species. So different species offers different benefits, and some species are actually insect repellent. Okay, so I think it boils down to the type of species you choose for your green for the vertical greening system. So, and then also the maintenance. So there are certain of course, we don't encourage people to use chemicals, but there are certain maintenance culture that can be inculcated into the maintenance strategies such that it will repel the insects and also reptiles.
Can I say something as well?
Okay, yes.
This is always a #1 issue, especially when you're talking to people in Nigeria. You know, I don't want bees, I don't want reptiles, I don't want snakes. You know, my house would look like a bush and things like that. So, of course, as Dr. Tobi mentioned, there are plants that actually give off odors that only insects can smell, so they keep away. And based on further previous research that I did, we developed prototypes within Agege community. And we developed the prototypes from the period of April to October. And all through the period, there was no single reptile that came into the compound, no single mosquito, no single bee. So this is actually possible. And yeah, that's what we're talking about, educating people and letting them know that there are always ways around this.
Yeah, that's interesting. And I think it's very true because from common knowledge of planting growing up, you understand that some plants are deliberately choosing to repel snakes. Some are choosing to repel insects. I'm aware some farmers deliberately plant some kinds of things to keep away insects that eat up the plant. So there is a way around this. I'm not sure if there's any other question before we close this session. Okay, there are comments in line with this. Okay, there are plants that could help repel insects. I think we said that. And wild fungi-based plants like mushrooms could be viable source of food, and they could be incorporated into VGS without any health risk. That's also useful. Someone is asking, what about tending? That is preventing the plants from growing wild. This putting high-rise building into consideration. I think this is part of maintenance. Dr. Tobi, you want to speak to this?
Well, I think you've said it also. Mainly it's about maintenance, and also, yeah, so it depends on, so I don't know. So I've read one of Dr. Feyi's paper, and one of the point there is the type of vertical greening systems that you have. So it depends on the way it is planted in the first place, and if they are like the self-climbing plant that you choose. So the self-climbing plants only have to stick to the wall. They don't shoot out of the boundaries that you set for the green system in itself. So I'm talking about for the for people that want to plant on buildings now. So in Hong Kong, what they do is to choose this kind of plant that actually stick to the wall and use planters. So when you use planters, you can actually break down the I don't know what you call it now, and then you can trim them quite easily. Of course, it's high cost maintenance. So that buttresses the point that for people in Nigeria, of course, you have to look for low maintenance kind of infrastructure to develop.
Okay, that's interesting.
Another one is the use planting edible plants. So if you notice, if you plant edible plants, you know that you notice they are growing a bit wild. If you use that term, all you need to do is just pluck them and eat. And that's part of the benefit we're talking about. If you plant say spinach and it's growing wildly, you just take some, cook, eat. So it's more like replacing. That's part of the life cycle analysis we're talking about. What kind of plants are there? How often do you use it? And how often do you replace it? So that could be a form of maintenance as well.
Okay, yeah, that's very interesting. So you could just plant your vegetable. When you need to cook, you just go to the front of your building and plug it off. That's interesting. Someone is making a comment here. Some municipalities are encouraging the use of plants on buildings, but they reduce the allowable area. Yes, it does, but it's necessary to make the trade-offs. Dr. Tobi, do you want to say anything about reduction in space as a result of greening?
Okay, so well, I mean, from my experience, what I know is for example, I have some experience in Hong Kong that what the government gave some incentives to developers. So what they have is they have building guidelines and greening strategies. So they have to bring this together. In fact, they have it in a very big document where you have to plant on 30% of your land space. And if you can achieve 10% of your building surface, they give you some incentives. Okay, so what I think is we can encourage this kind of vertical greening system in Nigeria, for example. If, of course, I know we have a long way to go in developing this kind of strategy. If the government can apportion, say, okay, if you plant on 10% of your building surface, we'll give you so amount tax relief, or we give you so amount of money on the investment and all of that. So with that, I think the issue of space, so it's more of trading it now. So I think the issue of space will be highly minimized if there are incentives to encourage people.
Dr. Feyi, do you want to add to that?
Yeah, Dr. Tobi said it all. It has to do with incentives, you know, encouraging buildings. Like if you put this percentage, this and this is what will happen. And this can only happen from a higher level, as we said, you know, influencing government policies. So that's part of a solution we can talk about.
Okay. Yeah, I think one key thing coming from this is the issue of policy. This wouldn't happen on its own, and even if it's happening on its own, it wouldn't move to scale. We need government policies, we need incentive, we need awareness so that people can know it's not just a push, it's something useful. And then the incentives should speak to financial challenges. I think it's very great to have two of you here today on this very interesting talk. A round of applause. I know we all have mics muted, but can we just give a round of applause to Dr. Tobi and Dr. Feyi for the very insightful presentation? thank you very much. It's a pleasure to have you here and for your passion, for your interest in this. Yes, you can unmute your mic and just give a sign to say thank you to them. And let's just do that in a minute or two.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much.
Thank you for the presentation.
Okay, let's now move to the next thing. I guess some of you would really be looking forward to this. Please mute your mics so that we reduce the interference. This last session is the announcement of the winners in the Greening Housing Innovation Challenge. I know a couple of you are aware that we had this challenge from May, and we put up a call for students, fresh graduates, to put their ideas together on vertical greening solutions for low-income housing settings in Nigeria. The call was open to people from all universities, including FUTA, where I happen to come from. And we got people to register, and we got a couple of registrations, and eventually people had to submit. All submissions were acknowledged, they were coded. So once you submitted your entry, we coded it before sending it to the jurors. And as part of the brief, the idea is to generate greening systems that speak to socioeconomic needs, that speaks to environmental needs, especially putting climate change into consideration. And it should be in the context of any city in Nigeria. So we preceded this by Pulcher talk, which Tosin hosted me for a talk before we launched the competition, and then we had people to submit to participate. We sent it to 3 jurors. Thanks to our jurors, Dr. Feyi assessed the presentation, Samson Ogole, who is a farmer. He calls himself by the title a farmer, proud to be a farmer, who leads the Soilless Farm Lab based in Lagos and I think Abeokuta. And also Dr. Williams, who is a botanist and a landscape architect, who has passion in these issues. They did a good job in assessing the entries and giving us feedback, giving us comments, and contributing to what we're putting out now as outcomes. And the assessment was based on 4 components: functionality issues, originality and innovation, visual quality and the narratives, and other possible criterion the assessors might want to add. Each of the segments do not carry equal weight. We had more of it on functionality issues and the innovation. How is this new? How is the solving problem? How is it improving on indigenous materials, indigenous plants and all that? We also put a mind on buildability and structural feasibility, because you don't want a VGS that would collapse after a rainfall, and also cost effectiveness. So these were the main measures against which the entries were assessed. So we got their assessment back. We gave them 10 days. One of the jurors asked for an extension, and we got it back. We averaged the marks and reviewed the allocations to arrive at the top 3. As we advertised, there will be a prize for the top 3, and then we saw 3 other entries that were good. I mean, all the entries were fantastic. I wouldn't say just the 6 of all the submissions were good. All the entries were fantastic. The interest in itself, the ideas put together. So, but it's impossible for us to give a prize or to recognize, especially recognize everyone. So we just had to this difficult task. Please, can you mute your mic? I can see some people joining us and the mics are on. Okay. Okay, so we had this difficult task of arriving at the few we're going to mention today. But we need to acknowledge the ideas put forward by our young architects. We can see that there is a future in terms of VGS. Hopefully this is kept up, and people thinking through on how to use various local materials, recycled materials, people thinking about poor context and how to address food security. So it was very interesting. It was a difficult task, and I just don't know how to express how difficult it is. My team would understand what I mean by how difficult it is to arrive at this conclusion. But not just an issue of the price, the cash you get, I mean, the cash would always end. The idea is to put what has been learned and what has been attempted to put it to work. So we having ideas about implementing some of these ideas. Maybe not wholesale as they came in the competition, in the submissions, but how it could be modified to suitable context. And then we could, depending on available resources, we could implement this. We could plan something. For example, we could do it in a school, in a low-income community, or an appropriate household where we can put this, and then get some empirical evidence of the contributions from these vertical greening systems. That's what we really want to do going forward. And then Pulcher, who is hosting this challenge, would be having an event just after the Corona stuff goes, and when we can have large events. So we expect the winners to also come and pitch their ideas and see how we could sell this and get to have more green buildings implementing vertical greening systems. But much more than this physical appearance and the research, the key idea is to see that everyone becomes a multiplier of knowledge and the skill they got from participating in this challenge, whether they won a prize or not. They've learned one thing or the other which we need to put to use in the Nigerian context. So that's really what we're looking forward to from all participants. I mean, even those who didn't participate in the competition, we hope to see them taking this up. I need to say thank you to the Pulcher team, fantastic young men. Thank you to the visionary, the creative director, the co-founders with whom I brainstormed to put all of this together. It's not just my idea. It's also not just their ideas. It's a collaboration with Pulcher to put this challenge and see how we can develop capacity of young designers to address sustainability challenges. And thanks to the CR4D, the African Academy of Sciences, from which the funds for the prizes are derived. The CR4D project is funding the prize for the winners and those who would get something as consolation. And of course, to Futa host the CR4D project. And it's interesting to see, to receive all the support to see that we get this done. So we now want to mention the winners. I think this is the point some of you have been waiting for. I guess I'm right. Or we can just close it off here. Okay, I know your mics are muted, so you will be waiting to hear. Let me confirm if you want to hear. Anyone who wants to hear, just unmute your mic and let's see. Okay, can you please unmute your mic? Okay, you want to hear. Okay. Okay, good. So I'll first go with the honorable mentions. Sorry, just a moment. Appears the computer is freezing. Okay, just a moment, and I'll roll up the slides to that point where you need to see. Okay, so we have 3 people in the honorable mention categories. This will receive consolation prizes, 15,000 naira each, for pitching up very great ideas. But just that it's difficult to have everyone in the top 3. These are the codes for the entries. Probably you would know your codes, but I would also mention, go to their names. The 3 honorable mentions are Ayomikosi Ode, Njoku Chigoze, and Ajala Ayobami. Those are the 3 in the honorable mention. Very wonderful entries made. Then we have the top 3. Top 3, very great ideas, commended and well received by the assessors. And the 3 in this categories are with the code GGO, VGS, DN, GMO, VGS, BHI, DXO, VGS. Now, let me just explain before I mention this. These codes are to anonymize the entries. So the assessors don't know who they're assessing. And for some of us, we really couldn't even figure this out until the last minute. Because we had to just look at things objectively, because it's anonymous. We had to just employ that. And for this top 3, we have Chooks Nnamdi Mandu, and then the second entry was by a duo, Adedeji John Mufeoluwa, and then Olaja Ifeoluwa, and then Oladeji, who made a solo entry, who won the top 3. So thanks to everyone, and very fantastic interest in this challenge. Very innovative entries, people thinking through on solutions and how to address sustainability challenges, and I am very impressed. We would request to have the Pulcher team, and I would request to have a meeting with the prize winners tomorrow or Friday, and then we'll see how to take things forward. So thank you. Tayo would be making some announcements from the Pulcher end, and Tosin before we have the vote of thanks. Okay, Tayo, Tosin.
Hello, everyone. Good evening. I want to give a vote to everyone. I really appreciate my, despite world, and I want to appreciate our patron, Dr. Adegun, for coming up with this visionary session. I also want to appreciate our speakers, Dr. Feyi and Dr. Tobi, for their really insightful presentation. It was enlightening. I'm glad to know even this session we are having is an active part of implementing vertical greening system, enlightening people about it. Really appreciate that. And I want to go on to make a request, if we can publish the slides which were used in the presentation. I also want to appreciate the competition. There was so much innovation, really difficult to come up with the winners. It was really good. Well, there you have the result. And I want to appreciate all Pulcher team for the relentless effort and support. That's all I have.
Tosin, some final words.
Okay. Once again, Tayo has
said about 99.9% of the fraction of the percentage I have, just to encourage us out there. Please, I believe we can make the perception and the practice of architecture in Nigeria better. And these are platforms that we have to actively engage ourselves in. We need to do some competitions. We need to span our thinking horizon. And I think with all these in place, when the spotlight gets to be on us, the practice of architecture, the perception of architecture in Nigeria will be way better than the way it is. That is what we are looking at. And once again, thank you so much, our guest speakers. It's really been an amazing time. We hope to have you one-on-one in our live sessions. Dr. Adegun, thank you so much for this platform to create an avenue to inspire young minds and encourage them more to really do appreciate it. So guys, I believe some of us, in case we missed this session or some parts of the session, we'll be uploading on our YouTube channel. You can just go to official Pulcher, just search it out on YouTube, and you can all connect and subscribe. Thank you very much.